Hi, I'm Jacqueline Rinksmeyer, Executive Director of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Jared Fry, General Manager and Public Information Officer for the City of Medina and Medina TV.
One of the core values of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce is business advocacy. We've been proud to partner with Medina TV on this voter education series for well over 10 years now. We're grateful to our interviewer and General Manager of Medina TV, Jared Fry, and our producer, Matt Tomick.
We are grateful for all the candidates that took part in the Candidates Forum, but we also want to stress that the opinions of those candidates are not those necessarily of Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
All candidates and contested races were invited to participate in this voter education program.
We want all voters to be informed to the best of the ability as they head to the ballot this November, so sit back and relax and enjoy our Candidates Forum.
We encourage you to make a plan to vote this November.
Joining me now in studio is Judge Lisa Forbes, a candidate for the Ohio Supreme Court. Thank you for taking time with us here today.
Oh, it's my true pleasure. I'm excited for the opportunity. I will take every opportunity to speak to the voters of Ohio. So,
yeah, and it's great to have you. And for those voters and residents at home, take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a judge on the 8th District Court of Appeals. That's what I do for my job presently. I love my job. It's a fantastic job that gives me an opportunity every day to impact the litigants and also take care of the law. So those are two things that I am very passionate about. Before I became a judge for 27 years, I was a litigator. That means that I was a lawyer in trial courts and courts of appeals all over the state of Ohio. I was a partner in a national law firm for 17 of those 27 years. And so that means that I was a business owner. I was an equity partner the entire 17 years. So that means I participated in the ownership and management of that business. And I very much enjoyed the practice of law. But as I was looking out at the horizon, thought, for my last chapter of my career, what is it that I want to do? And the answer I kept coming back to time and again was full-time public service. So that's what took me to the bench. And I left my partnership and I became a Court of Appeals judge. But I've also been passionate about the community that I live in for my whole adult life. I think that we all owe a responsibility to make the world a little bit better than it was before we were here. And one of the things I do to try to accomplish that goal is I've been a volunteer board member with an organization that provides social services to some of the most needy citizens of Cuyahoga County. That's where I live. For about 15 years I've been involved in that role, providing high quality health care, both physical health care and mental health care, Head Start, job training, and also residential services to adolescents who do not have parents that they can rely on. Those are two aspects of my sort of background in the world. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, is that I have a fierce work ethic, and I got that work ethic from my family. My grandparents are immigrants to this country. My grandfathers were coal miners in Western Pennsylvania, and I am a first-generation college graduate. I went to college thanks to things like work study and taking out student loans and waiting on a whole lot of tables. And I say that because I appreciate that as a candidate for the Ohio Supreme Court now, I am really the embodiment of the opportunity that my grandparents came to America for. And I really want to do my part to make sure that that is available for generations to come.
And now you've mentioned a little bit about the Ohio Supreme Court. Kind of talk our viewers through what is the role of the Ohio State Supreme Court?
Well, the Ohio State Supreme Court is the last arbiter of disputes in the state of Ohio. So that means that first you would go to a trial court, either a court of common pleas, a municipal court, maybe a mayor's court. And that is typically what people think about when they think about what court is. That's really what TV shows are made all about, is trial court. That's where juries are impaneled, if appropriate. And that's where criminal pleas are entered. It's where civil disputes are at the first level litigated. If one of the parties, one of the litigants to that trial court proceeding disagrees with how something happened, then they are permitted to appeal to the Court of Appeals. That's the type of judge I am now, a judge on the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals hears every appeal. anybody can appeal so long as you do it within the right time frames and bring the proper type of question to the courts. And the courts of appeals hear every question. The Supreme Court is different. The Supreme Court hears appeals from the Court of Appeals, but the Supreme Court gets to pick and choose which cases it hears. So when they are making those decisions, they're looking to consider the question whether a matter of public or great general or issue of great general significance has been raised by the parties. And if it has, in their estimation, then they take the case and they review it further. So really, the courts of appeals are the last line of defense, the last line for justice. I like to say sometimes the last stop for justice for most litigants. It's a very small number of people who actually go before the Ohio Supreme Court. The Ohio Supreme Court then would decide matters of constitutional consequence, death penalty appeals, things that have to do with public utilities, things of that nature, and then that broader category of matters of public or great general consequence.
Now, something that interesting has happened recently, and I think it was in 2021, they put the party affiliation tag with the Supreme Court justices as they run. What are your thoughts as far as having, I guess, party politics play a role in the justice system?
Yeah, I find it very disappointing. I find it disappointing as a citizen. I find it disappointing as a lawyer. And I find it disappointing as a jurist. When I put on my robe and I do my job as a judge now and as a justice in the years to come, I'm not a Democrat, although I am backed by the Democratic Party in this race. I am a jurist. My allegiance is to the law. The oath I swore was to uphold the law and Constitution of the United States and the state of Ohio. I didn't swear an allegiance or an oath to the Democratic Party at any time. That has nothing to do with how I execute my duties as a jurist. However, what having party affiliation on the ballot, I fear, does is it leaves people with the false impression that that is how justice is meted out, in the same way that, for example, legislation is drafted with horse trading and back and forth and predetermined positions, as happens in the legislature. That's not what happens in the judicial branch, or I should say, it is most assuredly not what is supposed to happen. It is not how I execute my duties, and it is unfortunate that people's confidence in the ability of the justice system to mete out dispassionate, fair results based on the law and facts that are brought before the court, it is unfortunate that that gets confused with whether somebody is backed by one party or another. So I find it very disappointing.
Yeah. Now, it kind of piggybacking on that with the next question, how, and this kind of fascinates me myself, is as a judge and a justice, if elected, how do you handle that balance? And I think you kind of just touch on it with first the party affiliation, your own personal opinion, and then the letter of the law. How is that balanced as a justice on the Supreme Court?
Oh, there's really no balance, right? I mean, there should be no balance, right? The law is the law. I don't get to look at some law and say, let me try to think of an example. I don't get to look at the law that says felony 2. The law currently says a felony 2, which is a pretty high-level felony, like felonious assault is a felony 2. I don't get to look at that and say, yeah, the legislature said that the appropriate sentence for an F2 is 3 to 11 years. I think I got that right. I don't get to look at that and say, yeah, but I think this guy should get 12. Because my personal belief is what he did was worse than what somebody else did. I don't get to look at the law and say, yes, I understand that the sentence that is set by the legislature is 3 to 11, but I think this guy should only get 1 year. I don't get to do that. Even if that's my personal opinion, I'm constrained by the law. that is the job of being a judge, and I, as I said before, I take it very seriously. If what I wanted to do was effect policy changes in the state of Ohio, I should run for the legislature or for the executive branch, not the judiciary.
Now,
But I will say this, I love the law. I have loved it since I was in law school. I have loved the way our system of governance is set up, and I am passionate about it. For it to function properly, the judiciary needs to stay in its lane.
Now, you segued me perfectly. You're talking about being passionate about that. What is the passion that makes you take part in the political process and also in law?
The passion, as I said, is that I just, even as a young person, I've always just been fascinated by this idea that we the people get to decide what our society is going to look like. And that's this constitutional form of government that we have. The United States Constitution, the state constitution. I am probably exposing my nerd credentials a little bit more here than I usually try to let out. But I just, I studied public policy in college, again, because this idea that the way we organize ourselves has great impact on how people fare within our communities, what opportunity we have to make our own paths. And I just find that fascinating. The law is the tool that we use to set the rules. Those are the rules that we agree that we're all going to live by. And then so that's what took me to the law, to becoming a lawyer. And then to the judiciary I spent 27 years watching the court system play out. And while I very much enjoyed being a litigator and making arguments, that's what lawyers do, judges actually get to say which argument is right. And that idea of protecting the law and safeguarding the law is really what drew me to wanting to be a judge.
Great. Again, we're speaking with Judge Lisa Forbes, a candidate for the Ohio State Supreme Court. What is something that you're most proud of in your legal career? I suppose the crowning moment to date has been being elected to the 8th District Court of Appeals. That was really just a dream come true. And I certainly have had numerous moments during my private practice career in which I was, very gratified. The very first appeal I ever argued, actually, was for it was a business divorce. It involved two business partners trying to separate their business assets and to go their own ways, and they got into a very acrimonious dispute. After a month-long trial that went against my client, we filed an appeal, and as I said, it was the first appeal I ever argued. And I am happy to say that the Court of Appeals not only reversed the jury's verdict, which was a $1.8 million verdict against an individual who was a part owner of that business. It not only reversed that verdict, but the Court of Appeals actually entered judgment on behalf of my client. So his legal journey ended. He did not have to go back for a retrial. It was over as a matter of law. And it was a technical legal question that had to do with the way in which business organizations operate. And it was very gratifying for being able to help him, but also being able to clarify the law. As a judge, and there were many in the intervening years, I won't go on ad nauseum about that, but as a judge, I've had many very gratifying experiences being able to, even just something as simple as being able to write an opinion that clearly articulates what the steps are in a process in the law, safeguarding the application of some of the rules. The rules of civil procedure are often quite Byzantine. And because I, for 27 years, practiced in that arena,
I have I think an appreciation for and understanding of them that not everyone does. So to be able to articulate clearly in a decision in a way that is helpful not only to the parties of that particular case, but hopefully future parties, have been very gratifying opportunities for me.
Right. Now, if elected on the Supreme Court, what is something you would like to try to improve on with the Supreme Court?
So one of the things that I think is very intriguing is something that I have seen in my role now for the last 4 years on the Court of Appeals, is that oftentimes individuals, defendants, will stand before the court at sentencing. And one of the mitigating factors that they articulate is that they themselves were the victim of crime and are suffering from an assortment of mental health consequences. And so I think something worthy of exploration is whether there is a way to provide assistance to people at the time that they are a victim of crime, to help them deal with the trauma that comes with that, to try to break that cycle of violent crime. And I think there are tools and there are models. Different counties throughout the state do things differently. And I think that that is something that I would like to explore if I were to be able to move if I'm elected to the Ohio Supreme Court. I think also there's always room to look at efficiency within the court system. One of the things that really bedevils litigants is how long it takes to get their matters resolved. So that is definitely something that I think is significant and should be attended to. And then the last example of something that I would like to be involved with improving in our justice system is I do think that we need a sentencing database. I appreciate that it would be a complex tool to create. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. You know, it was complex to go to the moon. We did it. It is, I'm not making light of it, but I appreciate that each defendant brings to any sentencing their own particular individualized traits and circumstances, circumstances of the crime, the circumstances of the individual, their criminal history. And I understand all that. Nonetheless, I am committed to the idea that a fair, just system is one that treats like crimes similarly. And we don't have any mechanism to afford that or to provide for that right now. And having a sentencing database that gives guidance and information, that first collects information about how sentences are being meted out and then is available to trial court judges when they are imposing sentences to assess whether they are meting out a sentence that is proportional and consistent with what other judges are doing. I think would be helpful not only to achieve that primary goal of justice, but also to building confidence in our judicial system. I'm deeply, deeply concerned that our public does not have confidence in the justice system. And when the people do not believe that the justice system is working to actually mete out justice, you risk a breakdown of orderly society. We cannot have a fully functioning democracy without it. And I am committed to doing everything I can to ensure that the justice system is as fair as it can be.
Again, speaking with the Judge Lisa Forbes, a candidate for the Ohio State Supreme Court, and you kind of face an interesting race, not necessarily because of your opponent or anything, but just because of the situation. You'll be stepping into a term that will end in 2026, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
That's correct. You got it right.
And so you'll have to step in there. So that almost means having to run, within 2 years of taking office, which is not the norm for this office. Not
almost. That's exactly what it means.
So,
right.
How do you approach that, and what are your thoughts on having to do that?
I think that is the system we have. So I understood that at the time that I embarked on this journey. I'm prepared to do that. I think the issues that face our state are significant. I think the inconvenience to me, the exhaustion level that goes with running statewide back to back is of little significance when compared to the importance of this race.
And again, that's Lisa Forbes, the Judge Lisa Forbes, sorry, the candidate for the Ohio Supreme Court. You've been great as far as answering all the questions I've had as we've gone through this, but I want to make sure I give you the opportunity to talk directly to the voters if there's anything I missed or anything you want to make sure you touch on. So take a moment. The mic is yours. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Yes, I would very much appreciate the opportunity, if elected to the Ohio Supreme Court, to do what I can to ensure that the High Court is a firewall that protects our democracy and the rule of law. That's why I got into this race. I think it's imperative that the Supreme Court be fair, balanced, and independent, beholden to no one, and not a rubber stamp for any of the other branches of government. The judiciary is a co-equal branch of our governance, and I am ready, willing, and able to serve all those functions. My experience and expertise in the law, my understanding of the business community, my understanding of the community at large, all have uniquely prepared me to fill this role, to protect the rights and freedoms that all Ohioans deserve to enjoy under our Constitution and laws. So I hope that you'll vote Forbes for Justice on or before November 5th. Thank you.
Again, Judge Lisa Forbes, candidate for the Ohio Supreme Court Justice seat. Definitely thank you for your time today, and I want to wish you the best of luck this November.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you again for this opportunity.
You're welcome.